Apple Magic Keyboard for the iPad. I purchased it on the 21st of January this year, and I've been using it for more than a month, almost 2 months, so here are my thoughts, the pros and cons and other things that I have to say about it. You can consider this to be a review if you want, but let's just begin with it. So at first I want to say that it really requires some getting used to and switching from a MacBook, because you can a lot of times forget it that you can actually touch the screen or you just tap it accidentally. It just happened to me a lot of times because, it just mimics the look of a MacBook, like you have the screen and a keyboard, but it's a different thing because you can actually touch it, obviously. But because it's an iPad OS and not a Mac OS, the cursor and the trackpad experience is a little bit different, of course. Like, you cannot really, like if you have the cursor on a Mac, you can really have great precision, but with the cursor on the iPad, you just hover over the app and it just gets selected. So you cannot really be that precise, I would say, but of course, it's a different device. I just wanted to point this out. If you, for example, want to close the case, it feels just great. It feels like a real MacBook. You can use it with one hand. You can just grab the MacBook like this, and you can also grab the iPad with the case like this. Also, what's great about this keyboard is that it also works like a case. So for traveling, it's great because you don't really have to pack a separate protective case for the iPad. The Magic Keyboard behaves like one. But on the other hand, it is a lot heavier because, of course, the weight has to be in the keyboard. So it's definitely a heavy package. As you probably know, you don't really charge the keyboard, but still the keys are backlit, which means that there is a light coming from them, which is really handy, but it of course has to use the iPad's battery. And I'm not saying that's a problem, but it definitely drains a little bit more of the battery life. Speaking of battery and charging, you have a charging port as a part of the case, but it's only dedicated for charging, and you cannot really use it for USB-C, for hard drives, or anything like that. It can only get the power, and that's pretty much it. And even though you have a keyboard, a physical one connected to your iPad, you can still get the software one displayed on the screen. It is still possible. So you can show the keyboard, you can hold down and click on the icon in the lower right corner, and there's going to be the option to show the entire keyboard. So this is also an option, I guess, if you really need it, but you have a physical keyboard, so I don't really see a lot of people doing that. Okay, so let's move on to the pros of this Magic Keyboard. Of course, one of the greatest things about this Magic Keyboard is the seamless connection, and you of course use the 3-pin connector, which is part of the Magic Keyboard. You just snap your iPad on it. You don't really care about anything. You don't pair it using Bluetooth. You don't really open up anything. You just put it there and you are pretty much good to go. So just like with other Apple accessories, just like with AirPods and other things, you don't really care about pairing or anything like that. Besides that, it is technically a laptop with 2 ports now if you use this keyboard. So you can very easily disconnect it, just as simple as you can connect it. Like, of course, if you, for example, you would want to take a photo or you just want to use your iPad in bed, you don't really need the entire package. You just disconnect the iPad from the keyboard and you can use it however you want. Once you're finished, you just snap it back there and close the case. It's just really simple, and you can really do that with your MacBook, of course. What I also love about this is that there are really many gestures. And if you would like to see in depth how many there are keyboard shortcuts, I made a specific dedicated video just about that, where I show more than 250 shortcuts of the Magic Keyboard, specifically with the iPad. And the link to that video is going to be down below in the description if you want to check it out. But I also talk about the software things and gestures with the trackpad. So you can use 2 fingers to slide the brightness sliders, the volumes, and definitely many things. Like you use 2 fingers to scroll around in pretty much any direction. You can zoom in, zoom out, of course, the great stuff. But on the other side, there are of course some cons or disadvantages of this. So let's just begin with the absence of function keys. So just like you have on a MacBook, you can control the brightness, the volume with the physical keys or touch bar. You can't really do that here. You simply don't have any keys. So if you want to change the brightness, you have to go to the control center and slide it there, and definitely some other things like the volume, multitasking, or whatever else. I mean, you just don't have it there. And not only you don't have any function keys, you also don't have any escape button. And this is useful, for example, when you're watching video in a full screen, you just tap the escape and it just exits the full screen mode. And in other things as well, of course, once you're doing some other task when you would like to escape or exit, you just don't get the button to do that and you have to find the software way to go about it. Also, I'm not sure if price is considered to be a disadvantage or a con, because if you really want this, you're going to pay for it the amount of money that they ask, naturally, but I'm not sure about it. Like, we of course know how much it costs, so everybody has to make their own mind about it. Another possible disadvantage is the weight distribution. Obviously, it is not a MacBook, and in order for it to be stable on a desk or somewhere, the weight has to be distributed equally. And on a MacBook, you have a thin screen, and all the weight and all the inside things are on the bottom part. Whereas on the iPad, everything, all the internals are in the display, and therefore the connected keyboard has to be heavier to compensate for that. And it depends on what you want to do with this, but you cannot really open up using it one hand. Just like you can do it with the MacBook, you can just grab one finger when the MacBook is laying flat on the desk. You just grab one finger and you open it up. You cannot really do that with the iPad Pro in its case, because you have to use two hands, and it's kind of a different thing, I guess. And even though it uses most of the similar gestures from a MacBook, some of them don't really work the same way and are kind of difficult to operate. For example, to zoom in, you can use Command, Option, and 8, just like you can do it on MacBook, but it gets kind of messy when you zoom it in, and it's a different experience. Of course, it's an iPad OS versus Mac OS, and that's kind of a disadvantage for me, I would say. And for example, there are some other software related things. I had a problem reaching the dock, so you need to swipe really sharply to the bottom of the page using the cursor with the trackpad, and if you don't do it quick enough, it just won't show up. It just shows you a little grabber if you're too slow, and it's kind of another thing that you have to sort of get used to. And lastly, there are some settings that you can modify in terms of the trackpad and the keyboard. So when it comes to trackpad settings, I like to keep the tap to click enabled. It is my favorite because I don't have to physically press the trackpad. I can just tap it with my finger and it acts as a click. But on YouTube, for example, when you're watching a video, it still doesn't work. Like, you can tap you can see the progress bar on it. You can really tap it. You can only just grab the actual slider and slide it wherever you want, but you cannot really use the tap gesture there for some reason. Anyways, when it comes to keyboard settings, the hardware keyboard, of course, I like to keep the globe icon to show emojis, and that's pretty much it. I don't really modify any other settings with it. Anyways, guys, I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. We are getting close to the end. This was just a list of my thoughts, the pros and cons after using the Magic Keyboard for more than a month, and hopefully you found it valuable. If you did, leave a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe so you don't miss future videos like these. Hope you enjoyed it, and we can see each other in the future ones. Have a great rest of the day.